Donald Trump really thought he could get us to stop talking about Epstein, didn't he? He thought that if he released the files and that Pam Bondi pretended that there was some level of transparency, we would just all move on. But we don't trust Pam Bondi, we don't trust Donald Trump, we don't trust Kash Patel. And so now more than ever, we will be talking about the Epstein files. And it's not just us in the independent media, it is also Donald Trump's former Republican defenders. Marjorie Taylor Greene will be louder than ever, Thomas Massie louder than ever, and there are even some Foxos like Megyn Kelly who just slipped up and admitted child Epstein evidence as it relates to Donald Trump that is blowing up this scandal. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Megyn Kelly said, I want to start with the context of all of the collapse that is happening around the Trump administration, and it comes from Lawrence O'Donnell right here.
The American news media has been so overwhelmed by Donald Trump since his emergence on the political stage that the New York Times, which continues to do great work in covering Donald Trump and the world, has lost its perspective on the enormity of what Donald Trump decided to say today about members of Congress saying something that he says is, quote, punishable by death. Had any other president of the United States ever said anything like it, the New York Times would have a 6-inch headline about it and a front page devoted entirely to that madness and the reaction to that madness. And tonight, it's not even close to the lead story in the New York Times. It is impossible to make too much of this story. And the only way to try to reduce the historic and moral and legal importance of what Donald Trump said is to internalize the notion that Donald Trump's words do not matter. And the American news media has done that. And they have done it for exactly one president. The old rules will come roaring back as soon as Donald Trump isn't president anymore. The next Democratic president better be prepared for the New York Times and the rest of the news media to scream attention to any phrasing on any subject by a Democratic president that they think is imperfect. A week ago, Donald Trump had one member of Congress in the basement of the White House, turning the Situation Room into a police interrogation room with the top cop in the country, Donald Trump's Attorney General, and others in the room trying to get one member of Congress to confess that she was wrong to sign that discharge petition in the House of Representatives, signed mostly by Democrats, to force the release of the Epstein files. That's what Donald Trump was trying to do 1 week ago. Not punish members of Congress by death, but just change one mind, one Republican mind. And he failed. And his attorney general failed. And Congresswoman Lauren Boebert did the honorable thing and stared back at the most powerful law enforcement official in the country and the president she has been so loyal to and said no. If she had said yes, if she had gone back to the House of Representatives and taken her signature off that discharge petition, then that bill never would have come to a vote. That's all Donald Trump had to do. That's how close he came. He just had to convince one Republican to take her name off that discharge petition, and Donald Trump a week ago wasn't powerful enough to do that.
I think Donald Trump at this point is aware of the state of chaos that his administration is in, partly because of what he said a few days ago about Mike Johnson. After the Epstein release passed in the House, Donald Trump said that he believed that Democratic leadership had outmaneuvered Mike Johnson. But what Donald Trump might not want to publicly say, but clearly understands because he's called Johnson his puppet before, is Mike Johnson only gets his power, he only gets his authority from Donald Trump. So if he thinks that Johnson is powerless and he is being outmaneuvered, I think deep down he has to understand that it is really him who is being screwed over by his own party and outmaneuvered by Democrats. And Donald Trump has to come to an understanding about that because it's the beginning of the end for his term. If Mike Johnson has no power, if he can't be the puppet master, it's all over. And his right-wing media, They can't even defend him because when they try, like Megyn Kelly did right here, they actually just admit the truth about Donald Trump's literal crimes.
There is not a single woman who has said, yes, I was trafficked by Epstein to Trump. There's one who says Trump walked into a house with Epstein and allegedly fondled her upon meeting her. Okay, that's the best they have so far. And they're waiting for some sort of smoking gun in these materials. So I think Trump did his 180 because he had to. He knew he was going to lose it.
Let me get this straight. So what Megyn Kelly is saying, that a girl who Donald Trump assaulted is now speaking out about it, and that's the best they have on him. Even if Megyn Kelly wants to say that it was someone who was of legal age, and the fact that we're even making those distinctions shows how batshit crazy this all is. The fact that we have to say, well, was she under 18 or was she over 18 when Donald Trump assaulted this person? Are we serious? We're at that point and Republicans are still trying to play this off. Donald Trump still thinks that we're going to move on. But what the fuck is this defense for Megyn Kelly? What has she been on over the past couple of weeks? Like at first, she was willing to say that Donald Trump really screwed this one and that it was a huge mistake for them to try to cover the Epstein files so much. But she did finish that sentiment by saying that it was a PR mistake. Like, call me next time and we can do a better cover-up. But what is Megyn Kelly saying? She is admitting to the fact that Donald Trump was assaulting someone who Jeffrey Epstein had trafficked or groomed or kept around or employed. Are you serious? Are you saying, like, that's not enough? That's the best they have on him? We are asking the questions with the darkest answers right now about the extent to how far Donald Trump could have gone with Epstein. And in our minds, we are wondering about the alleged abuse, the raping of children. And we are wondering if that took place with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And as we are further investigating that, the right is now saying, well, if that didn't happen, if in the next week or two you cannot find evidence of that, then Donald Trump is absolved. We're asking questions, and this is how it's going right now in the right-wing media. They're saying, oh, Democrats are coming up with these kind of fantastical ideas that Donald Trump killed Epstein, and if that's not the case, then he's absolved of all guilt. Like, they are now setting the bar so high because of what we think might be possible that they're saying if that isn't the case, if it isn't the truth, that Donald Trump was engaged on multiple instances in this trafficking, in this abuse of girls, then he's totally fine. Not realizing that the fact that we're even asking those questions is disqualifying of the man holding the presidency on top of everything else. It's disqualifying of him not being in a fucking jail cell. Megyn Kelly is saying, oh, well, he just assaulted one girl. That's fine. What? So you're saying that it has to, like, how many do you need, Megyn Kelly? How many people do you need to speak up? Serious, like, we've had plenty when it comes to Donald Trump. Are you serious? My God, these people have clearly lost their minds. But she is admitting it. She is admitting that Donald Trump is a criminal. And somehow that doesn't clock to her. Somehow she doesn't process that and understand the criminality that underlines everyone in this administration. Pam Bondi says we're going to follow the law. If you followed the law, Donald Trump would be behind bars. So would everyone in this administration. But clearly, Megyn Kelly doesn't see it that way. Because one, it's just not enough for her. In the same way that 15, it's not 5. Does Megyn Kelly need some help with math? 15, not 5. 1, not 20. It's okay. This person is insane. She needs, like, psychiatric help. MAGA is a disease of the brain. It really is. But thankfully, there are some in this administration facing some legal consequences, and Jen Psaki broke that all down. You're going to want to buckle up because this is pretty funny.
Are these two men you can see on your screen, Ed Martin and Bill Pulte. Now, Bill Pulte is the director of the normally somewhat boring Federal Housing Finance Agency. Well, that agency traditionally focuses on our nation's mortgage industry at a macroeconomic scale to prevent, say, another 2008-style housing market collapse. Pulte has instead focused a lot of his time on investigating the mortgages of individuals, and specifically individuals who are perceived enemies of Trump's. There's that. Then there's Ed Martin. Now, you likely remember him as the guy who donned a Columbo-style trench coat, you can see him there, and posed for a photographer from the New York Post outside of New York Attorney General and perceived Trump enemy Letitia James's apartment while he was investigating her for alleged mortgage fraud. There you go, in his costume. Trump appointed Martin to lead his so-called weaponization working group at the Justice Department. Then Pam Bondi made Martin a, quote, special attorney for mortgage fraud. But now today, MS Now reports that a federal grand jury in Maryland is investigating them. Oh, how the tables have turned. I mean, specifically, a federal grand jury in Maryland is investigating whether Bill Pulte and Ed Martin illegally shared sensitive grand jury information with unauthorized people, and whether the investigations that Pulte and Martin were doing were tainted by the investigative methods the two used. Not only could that be used by defense attorneys in the investigations into Adam Schiff and Letitia James to get the cases dismissed, but if the grand jury in Maryland decides to indict Bill Pulte and Ed Martin, they could be looking at criminal charges themselves. Charges like obstruction of justice and contempt of court. Now, when asked about today's news, the Justice Department had no comment. MS Now has also reached out to Bill Pulte for comment, but has yet to hear back. But now that I've kind of zoomed out a little and explained all that context, let's just zoom back in again. Because sources familiar with the matter tell ABC News that someone had been questioning California conservative activist Christine Bish about Adam Schiff's mortgage and claiming they were with the Justice Department. But they weren't actually FBI agents or prosecutors involved in the case. It wasn't Ed Martin. It wasn't Bill Pulte. But that person's question started the investigation that may now have them both in hot water. So who was it? The person she actually had been talking to was this guy.
Here with Robert Bose, who is appointed by Trump, President Trump, to be detailed to the DOJ and do a lot of great things. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing?
Sure. I'm a financial fraud expert. I'm in Office of Personnel Management, but detailed to DOJ, looking at mortgage fraud and other types of fraud.
Well, that man, Robert Bose, says he was working for the Justice Department. He does not. He's one of two people a federal grand jury is now learning may have presented themselves as federal investigators working on behalf of Trump appointees Ed Martin and Bill Pulte. And that is just part of the alleged misconduct that the grand jury is investigating Ed Martin and Bill Pulte for. It's quite a story.
The way that every move these people have made has completely backfired is just so delicious to watch, and I'm really liking just covering it. I'm going to be honest. I can say that. I've had a blast with the complete collapse of this administration, and I'm going to take it in, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. Thank you for those of you who followed me on Instagram, at Jack Cocchiarella. It's always good to see everyone engage in the community. And until next time, I'll see you soon.